Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jerk Show, the only show you need to keep up to date with all the security news, views, opinions, and people just reading the headline as they do the show.
Welcome to the Jerk Show, featuring your hosts, Javvad Malik and Eric Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
Yes. Timely topics, poorly presented. That is us indeed. On this show, we have got a whole bunch of stories for you. We've got ransomware. Google fixes something, a reason to stay up at night, and why killing yourself is not a good idea. Speaking of bad ideas, Eric, how you doing?
Wow, you really had to roll in with that one, huh? No, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, considering we've been gone for so long.
Yeah, we have been gone for so long. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Since like you came out to the US and hung out here, and then we had like Black Hat, DEF CON, all that stuff was going on. Then last week we were supposed to do the show, and I even kicked it off, and you were like, "Oh, I don't know. I think I'm
camera shy.
cramping or something." I don't remember. Yeah, it was something like that. And let me tell you, I just noticed something though, as we did the intro. It's probably time to redo that intro role using AI. What do you think?
No. I think there's a time and place to jump on the AI bandwagon, and then there's a point where it becomes oversaturated and unnecessary. To quote the wise doctor, philosopher Goldblum, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should.
You sound a lot like the Bitcoin people, like the cryptocurrency people. There was a time that it would have been great, but this isn't the time now. Unless you want to join now, which will help me because I joined in the early time. And
well, no, you're the one that wants to jump on this bandwagon, like NFTs. And how many Bored Apes cards do you have at home?
I have never said anything about NFTs, man. Those are ridiculous. Okay. Anyway,
let's get back on track.
Let's do
it. Regular service, and oil giant Halliburton apparently has been hit by a cyber attack. It says apparently because it could just be someone's unplugged something, or it could be an actual criminal attack. We have no idea.
Hey, Dev. Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things. I mean, it absolutely could be an accident that their systems went down and information was leaked on the dark web, apparently. And, totally not a ransomware attack because it doesn't sound at all like one. Now, folks, I do have to admit these stories were from last week because they were interesting. There may be some updates to this, but, the thing is, we're seeing stuff like this happen all the time now. Did you know, according to Sophos in 2023, the average ransomware payout was $1.5 million?
Is that the payout or the cost of ransomware?
No, that was the payout.
Wow.
And then the costs generally are at least that by the time you get in all the folks to do the digital forensics and shut the back doors that are dropped behind. Now, an interesting thing about ransomware, or a trend that we're seeing with ransomware, though, is it used to be they would get into your system and they'd hang out for a considerable amount of time and queue up things and find all of your stuff. But they're actually kind of rolling back to quick strikes again because it's reducing their chances of getting caught before they can kick off everything. But interesting that we're seeing that go back because we're getting better at spotting them with IoTs and stuff like that. But yeah, it used to be they get in, float around for a week or so, try to move laterally, find out what's really going to hit you. It's not quite like the old days where it would just fire off encryption for the first things it could find. There's still some human interactions, but it's definitely changing again.
Interesting how tactics change and everything old becomes new again.
Yeah. I think this is what was kind of funny on this one. When I read one of the stories they're talking about here, They were yet to determine if it would have a material impact on its business. Okay. And we've heard that term material impact before when it comes to reporting. Yeah. So a lot of the reporting requirements are saying, you must report within X number of hours or days if it has a material impact on your organization. But material impact is one of those things that they can go, no, I don't think it's a material impact. Took us offline for 2 weeks. We lost $200 billion, but ultimately it wasn't, it's such a gray area and lawyerese. I don't know.
It is. It's well, I don't know. It's one of those things where the argument continues to rage. Do cyber attacks actually have an impact on the company? And most answers point to no, or very little, or it's a blip in the radar.
Right.
Anyway, Google fixes a high-severity Chrome flaw actively exploited in the wild, and it's not very often that normally you consider Chrome to be one of the better browsers, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Edge, I suppose.
But everything's better than Edge, I think.
It's funny because Google's really gone from the, do no evil, which I think they finally dropped, to starting to become a little bit troublesome or kind of a villainous, if you will. They just released something not too long ago about how they were forced to, but they're going to delete your information that they have on you from incognito browsing. So they were tracking your incognito browsing, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It's only kind of incognito to the other websites that you go to. In other words, kind of hiding your identity from them. But Google is still tracking what you're doing in incognito mode, which means all of those places that you went, they know about it. Keep that in mind, folks. Not the wonderful, friendly company they used to be.
Oh, no, none of them are. I don't think any of them are. What's interesting here, it's a Google flaw, Chrome flaw, Google Chrome flaw, and it was discovered and reported by Microsoft's Threat Intelligence Center. And it's like, Microsoft, why don't you look at your own products with as much vigor as you're looking at Chrome or Google's products?
Well, what was key on this is that it was being actively exploited. And that's where it gets to be a big deal. There's like critical vulnerabilities all the time, but if they're not being actively exploited, it's not a big deal. But if you have that relaunch to update sitting in your toolbar and it's been there for a couple weeks, this would be a good time after the show, of course, to go ahead and hit that and just bite the bullet and restart your browser. I know if you're anything like me, you probably don't do that often. I know I sit there and look at it for a while till it's convenient, but I have like 7,000 tabs open. So
it is annoying, but it's interesting. Like, in the story, it talks about how it's the third actively exploited type confusion bug that has been patched this year. And there's been 9 0 days in Chrome since the beginning of the year. So it's I mean, for a long time, people have said like the browser is, it is your perimeter basically on your machine. Yeah. So that's the most attack vector. But
the irony is these are in V8. So if they just switch to EV, boom. that was a joke.
I know. It took me a second to get it, but then I was like, There's a bit of turbo lag there in my brain.
Yeah. And that's different. How? Pretty usual. Man. All right.
Anyway, are you a day person or a night person, Eric? When do you do your best work?
So I do my best work at night, but my job has me waking up during the day. So I'm actually on a daytime schedule, but I know you love it when I bring this up. When I was in the military, when I was actually active duty, I always worked midnight shifts. I worked like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I worked, it was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. when I was on the ship. So I've always been a night person.
Interesting that now most ransomware attacks happen at night. So, could you explain what you've been doing between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m., sir?
It's this is something that we've seen a trend for a while, and it's one of the reasons I was actually happy to see this come up this week. Is here in the U.S., this is a 3-day weekend. We have Labor Day on Monday, which is a day we don't do labor in honor of the days that we do labor or something like that. But what we've seen is over the years, the trend has been, in a lot of cases, ransomware actors will kick off the ransomware before a holiday weekend, or in this case, in the evenings, because response time is slower. It's harder to get a hold of people. On these weekends, hey, half the people are probably out drinking already, and things like that. It just makes the response so much slower. So they're starting to time this with holidays and in the middle of the night to make sure that they can get more done before reactions happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's there, and it's not just the criminals or the complete black hats that do this. You see a lot of companies try to bury bad news on the Friday before a long weekend or something. They'll be like, everything's great. Everything. Oh, by the way, we just lost like 5 billion in this messed up project that we invested.
We laid off 60% of our staff, and
yeah. Or this is the day that normally Brian Krebs will launch a big expose, and then everyone's like working till like all over the weekend, or some media outlet, like
it is also the best day to lay off people, because they're less likely to come back with bad intent. So, if you lay people off, they wake up the next morning, they're mad, they come in and they want to go get all stabby or something like that. It's best to lay them off on Friday so they have a cool down over the weekend. I've seen that happen
such
a
an
number
American
of times.
problem, I think.
Oh, nobody ever gets stabby in the UK. That's not what
not for being laid off. Not like you guys.
That's true, because you don't lose everything you own all the time. You actually have the government's programs there to help you sometimes, I think. Yes,
you do sometimes. Yeah, you do. We're far more developed country in that regard.
Yep.
Anyway,
so, you have nothing to add to this, though. Nothing like substantial or.
No, I said to you, if you'd been paying attention, like I'm sure our dear listener has been, it's all substantial. It's about using opportunities to your advantage, whether it's to hack someone, whether it's like to, during like times like blackout or whatever people always like joke about. This is a great time to start hacking into companies, because some of their best threat researchers or SOC analysts are all over at blackout and DEF CON, like, skilling up and what have you. So it's these sorts of things are always there, and with the global nature, I think this just also works so much in the criminals' favors, because if they're in another country, then they no longer have to follow the sun or anything. They wake up at their normal hour, and it's like midnight in the States, and they can launch an attack. So maybe it's not that they're doing this on purpose, it's that they just can't be bothered to stay up in the middle of the night to hack anyone. And they're just like, let's send this all at midnight. They're
no longer getting up early or doing any of that stuff to do it. It must be all the money they're making that's making them lazy, huh?
That's interesting. Exactly it.
Interesting.
And we're sitting here thinking, look at the genius and the absolute, thought they are putting into it. And they're like, no, I'm just lazy.
You might not be wrong on that. It is kind of funny, though. You mentioned a certain media person earlier, and lo and behold, that certain media person dropped a story when I worked at ISC Squared that was absolute crap, and we talked about this earlier today. And they dropped it while we were at RSA.
Oh,
so it was very hard to reply to, very hard to respond to get everybody together. And even once we did and showed them that what they were saying was incorrect, they went ahead and published the story anyways. But I'm not bitter about that in any way, shape, or form. But it did happen during a major conference, which is great timing by the media.
It is. So, have you ever wished you could get out of paying child support payments Do you ever feel that the financial burden is too much? Well, one man may have found a way out, except it wasn't a way out. So, a man in the US has been sentenced to 81 months in jail for faking his own death and officially marking himself as deceased. The Jesse Kip, 39. He was sent down for computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. What is These terms just baffle me.
Yeah, aggravated is usually there's something like significant about it. There's like here, there's assault where you punch somebody. There's aggravated assault if they're on the ground, can't help themselves, and you're kicking the hell out of them. It ups it to the next level.
Yeah. Okay, I see. So, he basically he faked his death because he didn't want to have to continue make child support payments or catch up on those he'd already missed. Internet evidence presented in court included internet search histories recorded on a laptop. You kill yourself, you should have burnt your laptop or something, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
the irony is he's going to jail where he's going to have to call someone else daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is crazy though, because if you think about it, to go through all this trouble to get around some child support payments, right? He did all this to get around that. But if you think about it, if you ever want to travel again or whatever, and you're now dead, there's not much you can do about it. You're going to have to steal somebody else's identity to become a person again. So it really shuts that stuff down. The other thing about this one, and we can see your screen, by the way.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. The other one about this one, though, is he got busted because he started selling that service or information on how to do it on the dark web. That's how he got taken down.
Yep.
So Chris Rock.
DEFCON 23 in 2015. Chris Rock, Australian researcher, I believe, he gave this really good talk on I Will Kill You. And he went through all the steps. So maybe this was a tutorial, but I don't think so. He didn't go into that much detail, but how to fill out a medical coroner's cause of death, how to become a funeral director and dispose of the body, how to obtain a death certificate, and what have you. And it was a really, really good talk. It's fascinating. And what's also really good, he actually spoke about baby harvesting, where it's creating and raising virtual identities which don't actually exist, but you fill out a birth form. So then you've got 18 years to harvest these identities, give them fake backgrounds and everything, and then start taking out loans and what have you. This is some real long-term planning stuff right there. But it's related to this story about faking your own death and what have you. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go check out the talk. It's a really good one.
It's a reason that a lot of kids' identities are actually more valuable on the dark web and stuff, because they can start a credit line, they can do all that. And it may be 15 years before that person actually goes to apply for something themselves and realizes they already have a credit line or credit lines established in bad credit. That's why people say for parents, it's a good idea to go ahead and run a credit check on your kids, even as they're growing up, even when they're young, to see if they actually even have a credit form opened on them, which would tell somebody that somebody has applied for something on their behalf. You would think that the credit card companies or the credit companies would go, this person is 3 years old. They probably shouldn't, but apparently that's too much for them.
Oh, why?
Gotta love it.
Yeah, why bother? But it's amazing how with technology now, with the simple click of a button, you can just erase someone. And isn't that marvelous? So with that, hopefully we're back on schedule now, and we will see you again next week with some fresher stories and better outlooks. Until